everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited today. I have the writer, director, producer of the new romantic comedy Surprise Me here with me. Nancy Goodman is here on the podcast. And thanks so much, Nancy, for taking the time to talk with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so what I like to do when I have guests on is give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us what inspired you to get into film.
So my name is Nancy Goodman, and my inspiration really was not having anything to do with film. It was more to get a message out to women who had food obsessions like I did, obsessing about every diet and calorie and not understanding what was behind the overeating and the binging that I was doing. I didn't categorize myself as having an eating disorder because I just thought I loved food too much. Really, everything that I've done since then, the books, now the movie, was just a vehicle for getting the message out. So I didn't set out to make a film. I set out to find the way to get the message to women. So
interesting. Okay.
Kind of all came from there, yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the movie, and also, so this is your first film, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you did everything. You wrote it, you directed it. Like, how was that?
It was so fun. it was so fun. I kind of treated it like I was just having people over, to my house, and I just I wanted them to feel comfortable. I wanted them to understand the story and the heart of what this was all about and what it came from, where it came from, and they all got it. And that connection was how I chose who to work with, and it just kind of worked. It was so organic, and there were people I had to walk away from, producers and such, and even directors, because I could see that they were kind of, I think, more into the idea of either winning, getting into Sundance, or making money, or whatever it was. And I thought about that person, that woman, that girl sitting in the audience, and what I wanted her to feel, and that became my motivation, kind of my path to every decision that I made, was knowing that how I would feel had I not gone through what I went through to get to the understanding of what was behind the food. I needed to make it fun. There were people who wanted me to make it dark. And I said, no, we feel dark about this. The last thing we need to do is look at something dark about it. We need to look at something that is light and fun and makes us feel normal and accepted and together, not what makes us feel dark, so.
That's an interesting thing, because I can see how people might say, oh, well, you don't want to make light of something so serious, but in treating it as a sort of normal experience that or an experience that normal people go through and learn from and grow from, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah. And if we talk about the word eating disorder, there's a big stigma to that.
Yeah.
And I will say that our whole country is one big eating disorder. And there's no stigma to the Food Network or the obsessions about recipes and food. I mean, we make food like crack. We just make it better and better. And then we try to deprive it because we want to lose weight. So there's all of this chaos going on around food. But I wanted to bring people's attention to the feelings, because all of this is just a big act. It's a big story and thing for us to engage in, and it takes us from our feelings and from the choices that we can make on a daily basis that have nothing to do with food. And once we make those choices, then we identify our feelings and we feel them, and maybe we feel horrible, but that's part of life. And so we have dark moments, we have light moments, but it's a pretty movie intentionally. I didn't want it to feel heavy, but I wanted it to feel honest.
Yeah, interesting. So would you say that in what ways would you say that Jeannie, the lead character, is kind of similar to your experience? In what ways would you say that she's different?
Well, she's different because she's more successful. She's a businesswoman. I've been a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
So that's what I would say. That's the biggest difference. And any pathetic thing that she does in the movie, I promise you, I did it. That's where I got the idea. her vulnerability is close to mine. The total lack of understanding that there were any feelings behind what she was doing, that was my lack of understanding. I knew to make a connection between somebody just said something hurtful and me, an hour later just diving into food. I never made that correlation.
Mm-hmm.
So, the therapist in the movie is, I intentionally made her wacky but wise because, again, I didn't want it to be too serious, but her message is strong. It's very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to go through humor. There are painful moments in the movie, where it evokes emotion. But again, I just tried to be really real with it.
Mm-hmm.
And although the story is different than mine, on the outside I wasn't a surprise party planner, the feelings on the inside are very close. And there's a lot of relationship stuff in there too that can also trigger overeating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you know how to did you just kind of learn how to direct as you went, or how did you know how to do that?
That's such a good question because I don't know. I never intended on directing this movie. I was looking for directors, and somebody suggested, you wrote the book, you made these characters, you should direct. And I said, why would I ever sabotage my own film? Why would I do that? I don't know how where to put somebody's foot or whatever. I mean, I don't know anything about that. And they said, it's our job. This was the other producer and the assistant director, and they said, all you have to know is your vision. It's our job to get your vision up on the screen. And so you know what she looks like, how she dresses, what her apartment is like. You know how to communicate to the actors what they're feeling, where they are in a moment emotionally. And that was true.
Yeah.
So it was my ability to rely on them. And then the cast themselves, because they understood it and they had reservations too, to work with a first-time director. But I think they felt the mission behind this, and everybody it was a joint effort of everybody. So they made it easy for them, and I think I made it easy for them too. And it wasn't, it was work in terms of time and attention, but it was a warm, fuzzy place to go for those 25 days of shooting, and I loved it.
Nice. Yeah, is this something you'd want to do again?
I'd love to do it again.
Yeah.
This was fun because it was my thing. I mean, my kids, my dad, my dog, they were all in it. But yeah, the actual experience of directing was so fun. And I did take a lot of my experience as a mom to that, because you want to make people comfortable in your home. And this was my home of story and expression and comfort and realness, and just wanted everybody to feel a big part with warm energy and excitement about it, and I think they did. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you decide on Fiona? We love Fiona on the podcast. She's actually
Isn't she wonderful?
Yeah, I've been able to interview her, and she was a delight. And so how did you decide on her as far as auditions and everything?
I wanted somebody, and again, like with the LA cast, Chicago cast, I could audition. With the LA cast, it was really just the casting director telling me who was available, looking up things that they had done. And what I saw in her was she had a very sunny, cheerful, fun quality. And what I was worried about was the depth. Would she be able to do that? Because I wasn't seeing that in some of the things that she had done at that point that I was able to see. But in talking to her, and she had hesitation too, as I said. But when we talked about it, and I talked about how it's an embarrassing role to play, but she got it, and that our conversation made me feel so comfortable. I think it made her feel comfortable too. And then once we met, it was instant, and she so wanted to please me. She so wanted to do this in the way that reflected the way the character was written. And then she brought to it things that she exceeded my expectation. I just loved watching her, and I think she did every moment with such authenticity and and spirit. And she played the sad moments, she played the fun moments, she played the kooky moments. I was so happy with her. So happy.
Yeah, and she's really good about bringing the humor into a scene and
Yeah.
that's not necessarily like a funny scene. She can kind of bring some humor into it, which I appreciate.
Right, right. She was
Hmm.
amazing. She was amazing. And we got really close during the filming. She actually stayed at my house a little bit and, got to know my kids. And so I just love that woman.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you had our two leading men,
Uh-huh.
Jonathan Bennett and Sean Farriss. That must have been fun to work with
That
them.
was Jonathan is such a hoot. He is
Yeah.
just as kooky. He walked in the first day, dropped his pants, and said, "Okay, where are the outfits?" And I mean, he just is all out there. He's so funny. And Sean, he had a really interesting approach, which was he wanted, he knew that the character that he was playing had two sides, and he didn't want him to be a jerk. And I said, all jerk. And I said, that's right, because if he's a jerk, then she's a jerk for attaching to him. So
Hmm.
he really looked to find and he was the one who really helped me sometimes let them do their own thing. He called it going in the playground. Like, let us go in the playground and see what we come up with.
Hmm.
And so there was a trust that we all had with each other. So there were times where they wanted to play it a certain way, especially Sean and Fiona. They
Hmm.
saw it go in a certain direction, and I said, no, it needs to be this at this moment. And then there were other times where they said, no, it needs to be this in this moment, and I I got it. We all worked together in that way, and we trusted each other. And it ended up, there were times where they did a scene totally different than the way I wrote it, and I liked it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. In his Christmas movie last year, Jonathan Bennett, he was so good about I felt like every scene that when they declared cut, everybody was just like cracking up and you don't
Uh-huh.
sometimes get that with Hallmark movies. You don't necessarily get that spirit of sort of fun, of funny, of humor. Like
Yeah.
you get the sweetness, you get the romance, you get but not so, and I just felt like he was just so funny in every scene and I feel some of that here too. And he was just really sweet. And I thought that she genuinely had nice chemistry with both men, and they both
She
kind of
really did. Such
yeah.
different chemistries.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you could see who she was in each relationship and the different parts that they brought out in her. One comfortable and one doesn't. One goes deeper, one is more shallow, and it was interesting. And I just thought it was fun. And I've always been very intrigued by friendships that turn romantic and what makes that happen and what doesn't make it happen earlier. And
Yeah.
also some of the deeper relationships, and are they healthy or are they not? And sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. So is this guy challenging her, or is he making her explode?
Hmm.
And is this friend really someone who should be with, or should he just be a friend? So
Yeah,
but
well, and the problem was the lack of communication because the Sean Fair's character, like he's a good person, but he was a
yeah.
bad communicator, and that's really hard on a relationship.
Yeah, and he had his own stuff that that
Yeah.
that he was bringing, and that's something that Sean and I talked about a lot. We wanted his character to be flawed, but to have a good heart. And that's what
Hmm.
she found in him and saw in him, and wanted to get to know better. And they had parts that worked against each other, and then they had parts that worked really for each other.
Right.
And Jonathan was, the Danny character is, he's a combination of he's a combination of my ex-husband and other friends that I've had.
Hmm.
Some of the dialogue that they have is actual stuff that Scott and I would say, and and same with the Sean character. They were both based on relationships that I had had, and
Hmm.
that I learned so much from.
Yeah.
And so originally I hadn't even brought the food into the whole thing. It was more of a story that I wrote to try to understand my own life and
Mm.
decisions better. But yeah, Jonathan's humor is, he would just start rolling off things that we were just all so hysterical watching. And again, we kept those things in the movie because they were just so perfect. He's amazing.
So do you like surprise parties, or are you a big fan of?
Oh, I love them. As a matter of fact, I did actually have a little business called Surprise Enterprise for a while, and I, like for Scott, my ex-husband, I once threw a surprise party for him at a movie theater. He thought we were just moved into a movie late, and so we sat down, and then maybe 10 minutes into the film, the lights went up, the audience all stood and faced him and yelled surprise, and he just never saw it coming, you know. There was a big picture on the screen of him, like that's the film stopped, and it was just him on stage, and I just looked at his in his face. It didn't change, you know. He was just frozen. And so I love doing surprise parties. I've done them for my kids, and so that was a genuine
That's funny. The only tricky thing about surprise parties is you don't want the person to think you've forgotten their birthday.
Yeah, I know, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so usually I'll do a decoy thing. Like I'll have something planned that they think is coming up, and that thing never happens and that distracts them from the thing that really is happening.
Yeah, that helps a little bit. So then they'll be like, "Why are you talking with all of my, all my friends or my other friends? What's going on?"
Yeah, I know. They're hard to pull up, but they're so fun. I just think they're so fun.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Well, where can people, if they want to see the film Surprise Me, where can people see it? It's going to be on demand?
This Friday. Yeah, this Friday it will be released on Amazon Prime.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put a link in the description for that. And
good, thank you.
Do you have social media or anything like that you want to share?
Oh, Surprise Me Movie is our Instagram and Facebook.
Great. We'll put that in the description as well so people can follow you.
Okay.
And thanks so much for taking time to talk with us and talk with me. And I really look forward to seeing what you do next.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, good luck with the film. And
thanks so much.
Okay.
All right.
I'd like to thank Nancy for coming on the podcast. This was really fun to get to talk with her, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you're looking for a fun little rom-com, check out Surprise Me on Amazon coming up this week. Thanks again, and please subscribe to my channel. If you're listening on iTunes, please follow us and give us your ratings and reviews. We sure appreciate it. And consider becoming a patron of the podcast. We have giveaways and all the other fun opportunities. Have all the information in the description section. We also have our merch store, which there's lots of fun holiday merch. So check that out as well. And I'll put a link down to my interview with Fiona Goodman on Hallmarkies podcast from last year. So definitely take a look at that as well. So thanks so much again to Nancy, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.